The storm that night had the kind of anger you could feel through the glass, the kind that slapped against the windows of the black Mercedes as it sped down the wet bridge leading back toward Manhattan. Inside, the cold glow of Ryan Bennett's iPhone lit the dashboard every few seconds, each notification from Chloe flashing like a knife across the dim cabin. In the back seat, Emma sat with both hands wrapped around her belly, 6 months pregnant, breathing slow, steady, trying not to cry again. She had told herself she wouldn't break in front of him tonight. She had promised the baby she would stay calm, but the truth squeezed her chest so tightly she could barely swallow. She had seen the photos. She had seen the way Chloe leaned into Ryan at that gala in the Hamptons, the whisper, the laugh, the familiar way he touched her elbow. And Emma knew. She had known for weeks. She just didn't want it to be true. The rain thickened. The wipers struggled. Ryan tightened his grip on the wheel, jaw clenched, the anger in him rising as fast as the storm outside. "You always choose the worst time to start drama," he snapped, the words slicing through the darkness. Chloe, sitting in the passenger seat, shifted uncomfortably, but didn't say a word. Emma lifted her chin and whispered, "I'm not starting drama. I'm asking why my husband smells like another woman." She tried to stay strong. She tried not to tremble, but her voice cracked at the end, and Ryan's shoulders tensed like her pain was an inconvenience. The argument escalated fast, too fast. Ryan turned his head to respond, eyes off the road for a second too long. The rear lights of a truck burst through the rain ahead. Emma screamed. Ryan jerked the wheel. The Mercedes spun, the world flipping in violent circles, metal scraping, glass exploding, the bridge railing shuddering under the impact. In a heartbeat, half the car hung over the edge, swaying above the black churning water below. Emma's door jammed. Water seeped in from the cracks. Her heart pounded so loudly she could hear it in her throat. She kicked, pushed, tried to reach the front. "Ryan, help me. The baby Ryan, please." Her voice was raw, terrified, shaking. Chloe's sobs filled the cabin. Ryan froze for a heartbeat, staring at both women like a trapped animal. Then he made his choice. Without looking back, he unbuckled Chloe first. He pulled her through the shattered windshield, his hands shaking, his breathing frantic. "I'll come back," he shouted over the screaming wind. But the car tilted harder. Water surged. Emma's fingers slipped from the seat, and Ryan ran. As the Mercedes plunged toward the river, Emma realized the father of her child had chosen to save someone else. In the chaos that followed the crash, Ryan stumbled onto the bridge, soaked in rain and shaking so hard he could barely breathe. Chloe clung to his arm, coughing, trembling, mascara streaked down her cheeks like black rivers. Behind them, the twisted Mercedes groaned, metal bending as if taking its final breath before slipping beneath the rail. Ryan turned for half a second, just long enough to see the back half of the car rocking violently, water flooding through the broken seams. He told himself there was nothing he could do. But the truth was simpler and uglier. He was terrified. A police cruiser arrived first, lights flashing red and blue across the drenched pavement. An officer rushed toward them, shouting over the storm, asking if anyone else was inside the car. Ryan hesitated. The pause was so small most wouldn't notice, but Chloe did. She got out earlier," Ryan stammered, voice cracking. Chloe stared at him, realizing the lie was forming right there in the rain. The officer frowned, eyeing the half-submerged car. "Sir, are you sure no one else was with you?" Ryan swallowed hard, nodded, and forced out, "Yes. Just us." They were taken by ambulance to Manhattan General. The ride was silent except for the hum of the engine and Chloe's shaky breathing. Ryan stared at his hands, remembering Emma's scream, remembering the way her fingers slipped as the car dipped forward. He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to block the image, but it clawed its way back into his mind. By the time they reached the ER entrance, news was already spreading. High-profile attorney involved in near-fatal crash. Detectives arrived an hour later. One placed a recorder on the table and asked Ryan to walk them through everything who was in the car, what caused the skid, why his wife wasn't with him. Ryan's throat tightened. He repeated the lie, adding details, shaping a story he could barely keep straight. But detectives weren't satisfied. A traffic cam had caught part of the crash. A witness claimed he heard a woman scream, "I'm pregnant," before the car went over. Ryan felt sweat gather at his hairline. He denied everything. He said the witness must have misheard. Meanwhile, divers searched the dark river. They found the Mercedes half-wedged under a collapsed beam, windshield shattered, back seat nearly crushed. There was blood on the headrest. A shoe, a torn strip of fabric that looked like maternity cotton. The river current was strong. After hours with no body recovered, the lead diver made a quiet statement. If she was inside, she didn't make it. When detectives returned to the ER, Ryan braced himself. Fear, guilt, and relief tangled behind his eyes. They informed him they believed Emma Bennett was likely dead. Ryan let out a sound between a sob and a gasp, but it wasn't grief, it was escape. Chloe watched him silently, realizing just how deeply the lie ran. And while Ryan whispered, "I didn't mean for any of this," the storm outside only grew louder, like the universe refusing to let him hide. But the truth was already slipping beyond his control. In a small hospital 30 miles away, a different set of hands was fighting to keep a battered woman alive. Emma was unconscious, cold, barely breathing, but alive enough for the monitors to catch a faint heartbeat, hers and the baby's. A nurse checking her chart frowned at the missing identification. "No name, no address, no contact," she whispered. "Where did you come from, sweetheart?" As Lucas Hayes stepped into the room, frozen at sight. And nothing about that night would stay buried for long. Emma drifted in and out of consciousness, trapped between darkness and muffled echoes. Every inhale burned. Every exhale felt like it pulled her farther from the world she knew. When her eyes finally fluttered open, she saw pale walls, a single fluorescent bulb, and the blurry outline of a man leaning over her. She tried to move, but a sharp pain shot through her ribs. Her hand flew instinctively to her stomach. The baby. Was her baby still alive? Dr. Lucas Hayes stepped closer, his voice low and steady, the voice of a man who had seen too many broken bodies carried into emergency rooms. "You're safe," he murmured, adjusting the monitors. "You were pulled from a submerged vehicle. You took in a dangerous amount of water, but we stabilized you." Emma blinked, confusion swirling. Submerged vehicle. Images slammed back. Rain, the bridge. Ryan's face twisted in fear. Chloe's scream, the cold water swallowing her. Her throat tightened. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked like old paper. "My baby, please." Lucas checked the fetal monitor beside her bed. His shoulders relaxed slightly. "There's a heartbeat," he said. "A little slow from the trauma, but steady. You're both fighting." Tears slipped from the corners of Emma's eyes. Relief hurt almost as much as the pain in her body. She whispered thanks. She could barely form, each syllable trembling with disbelief. Lucas hesitated before asking, "Do you remember anything else? Anyone else in the car with you?" Emma's heart lurched. She saw Ryan's back as he scrambled out. She saw his hand grabbing Chloe's wrist. She saw herself reaching, begging. Her stomach twisted, nausea rising. "My husband," she whispered. He left me." Lucas's expression shifted, controlled but not cold. He made a note in her chart, then gently said, "You're safe here. No one will hurt you now." A nurse entered with fresh blankets, unaware she was interrupting a moment stitched together by fear and fragile hope. "We'll need the name of your emergency contact," she said kindly. Emma opened her mouth, but no name came out. Not Ryan, not anymore. Her parents were gone. Her brother lived states away, number memorized but rarely used. The nurse waited patiently, pen poised above the clipboard. Emma finally whispered, "No contact." It felt like admitting she had died already. After the nurse left, Lucas remained. He watched Emma with the quiet concern of someone who understood survival in its rawest form. "If anyone did this to you on purpose," he said softly, "you don't have to protect them." Emma looked at him, this stranger who had pulled her from darkness. She wanted to tell him everything, but the words tangled in her throat. She wasn't ready for truth. Not yet. The wound was too fresh, too jagged. The hospital room fell into a heavy silence, broken only by the soft beeping of the fetal monitor. Outside, rain tapped the window, gentle now, like the storm was exhausted. Emma stared at the ceiling, trying to piece herself together. She had survived something she wasn't meant to survive. Someone had chosen her life over the darkness. But another had chosen to abandon her. And that truth, sharp and merciless, cut deeper than the river water ever could. Lucas stepped toward the door, then paused. "You're not alone," he said. Emma nodded, exhausted. When he left, she laid a shaking hand on her stomach. The baby kicked, a small reminder that life hadn't given up on her. She closed her eyes and breathed, wondering how her survival would change everything Ryan thought he'd buried forever after. Emma lay in the small recovery room, wrapped in hospital sheets that smelled faintly of detergent and old linoleum. The pain medication softened the sharp edges of her body, but nothing dulled the memories pressing against her skull. They came in flashes, bright, painful fragments of a life that once felt solid, beautiful even. A life she had believed in. A life she had built with hands that always chose love first. She closed her eyes, and the past rose like a film reel. She remembered the cramped studio apartment in Brooklyn where she and Ryan lived when they first got married. They used to sit on the floor, eating cheap pizza, while sharing headphones plugged into Emma's old MacBook. Ryan would lie on his back, head on her lap, promising her the world. "When I make partner, we'll move somewhere with windows big enough to see the skyline," he'd say, tapping her wedding band lightly with his thumb. She believed him not because of the promise, but because his eyes had held the kind of hunger that seemed aimed at building a future, not destroying one. Then came the promotion. Then came the high-rise apartment with floor-to-ceiling glass that looked out over Central Park. Their first night there, Emma twirled barefoot across the polished floors, laughing as Ryan lifted her up, spinning her until she couldn't breathe from joy. They toasted with cheap champagne, sitting on packing boxes, pretending they were royalty. Emma had kept the cork from that bottle in her jewelry box. A relic. A lie she didn't know was a lie yet. The higher Ryan climbed, the more the world around him shimmered. Dinners with clients on Fifth Avenue, rooftop galas. Nights he came home smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. At first, Emma tried to keep up new dresses, new makeup, new ways of talking so she didn't sound too soft. But she wasn't built for glittering rooms filled with people competing to be the most important voice. She still liked cooking dinner at home. She liked reading on the couch. She liked quiet. Ryan began calling her boring in small jokes. Harmless, he'd say, but they carved little wounds into her. Still, she loved him. She loved him enough to forgive the late nights, the sudden showers when he came home smelling unfamiliar, the way he flinched when she touched him while he worked on his laptop. She told herself marriage had phases. She told herself exhaustion made him distant. She told herself everything except the truth that the man she married had started building a life that no longer included her. When she found out she was pregnant, she imagined the baby would bring them back together. She pictured Ryan holding their child against the window overlooking the skyline, whispering promises of a better future. Instead, Ryan grew colder. He acted like her pregnancy was a weight pulling him down, not a miracle forming inside her. The worst part? Emma still wanted to believe he loved her. Her eyes fluttered open in the hospital room, tears slipping sideways into her hair. She inhaled shakily. The memory of the bridge hit her like a wave, Ryan looking at her, choosing, deciding. He hadn't frozen. He hadn't panicked. He had made a choice. A nurse entered quietly, checking the monitors. "You're lucky," she said softly. "Most people don't survive a fall like that. Someone must have been watching over you." Emma didn't respond. Luck wasn't the word. Luck didn't explain the man who carried her out of the river. Luck didn't explain why she was alive when Ryan had let go. She turned her face toward the window, heart cracking open again. She had survived the river, but now came the harder part, surviving the truth. And the truth was about to get even darker than she knew. The day after Emma stabilized, a quiet hum filled the small coastal hospital. Nurses walked briskly, carts rattled, monitors beeped in steady rhythms. Emma lay still, staring at the ceiling as if the white tiles might rearrange themselves into answers. But no matter how long she stared, the same truth wrapped around her like cold metal. Ryan didn't save her. He saved Chloe. Chloe Miller. The name alone made Emma's stomach tighten. She remembered the first time she ever heard it back when Ryan came home late from a firm event and casually mentioned a new PR specialist joining their team. "Smart girl," he'd said, brushing off his suit jacket. "Really sharp, knows how to handle the tough clients." Emma had smiled politely, thinking nothing of it. She had no reason then to be suspicious. Ryan's world was filled with polished people, ambitious, hungry, always networking. Chloe was just another face in that glittering crowd. But then the small things started. Little perfume traces on Ryan's shirts, the kind that smelled expensive and young. His newfound habit of turning his phone face down. The way he laughed a little too hard at jokes Emma didn't hear. The way he straightened his tie whenever Chloe's name came up in conversation, like her mere existence tugged some hidden string inside him. One night, Emma found a lipstick smudge on Ryan's white collar. Not her shade, not even close. When she asked, he laughed it off, saying it came from someone bumping into him at a firm event. "You worry too much," he said. But Emma saw the lie flicker in his eyes like a match. And then came the gala. Emma had stayed home that night because her morning sickness had gotten worse. She remembered scrolling through social media to distract herself. That's when she saw a photo taken by a junior associate. Ryan and Chloe standing together. Too close. Chloe's hand resting lightly on Ryan's arm. Ryan leaning in, whispering something that made Chloe's cheeks flush. They looked like a couple in a world Emma didn't belong to. She had confronted him after that, voice soft, trying not to sound accusatory. "Is there something going on between you two?" Ryan had stared at her, annoyed. "Why are you doing this? Why are you trying to ruin a good night?" He made her feel crazy for even asking. But she wasn't crazy. She had felt her world shifting beneath her feet. And the final confirmation had come the night of the Hamptons trip. Emma had walked into the beach house and seen Chloe standing there already, perfect hair, perfect makeup, wearing a slim black dress that didn't match the casual weekend Ryan had promised Emma. Work emergency, Ryan had claimed. She just needed to talk about a PR issue. But the way Chloe kept brushing non-existent strands of hair behind her ear, the way Ryan avoided Emma's eyes, that was all she needed to know. Now, lying in this unfamiliar hospital bed, Emma replayed the look on Chloe's face inside the car right before the crash. Terror mixed with something else possession. Chloe knew Ryan would choose her. She didn't beg. She didn't plead. She simply waited. And Ryan reached for her first. Emma's breath trembled. A nurse entered, adjusting the IV drip. "You're healing well," she said gently. "You just need rest. Your baby needs calm." Calm. The word felt foreign. Because Emma knew something now with painful clarity. Ryan had chosen his lover with full consciousness, full intent. She and the baby had been an afterthought. And that was the moment something hard, new, and unbreakable formed inside her chest. Emma wasn't going back to the woman she was before the river. Night settled over the small hospital like a heavy blanket, thick and airless. The hallway lights dimmed to a soft glow, leaving long shadows stretching across Emma's room. She lay awake, staring out the window where a single street lamp flickered against the dark. Every breath felt too loud. Every heartbeat felt too fragile. And tonight, for the first time since waking, the weight of everything crashed down so hard she could barely stay afloat. She didn't cry at first. The shock had been too deep, the betrayal too enormous for tears. But now, in the quiet, her mind played every second of that night, like a cruel loop. Ryan turning away, Chloe clinging to him, the crunch of metal, the icy water filling her lungs. She heard her own voice begging, echoing against the inside of her skull. "Ryan, please." Over and over. A prayer that went unanswered. Her hand drifted to her stomach. The baby kicked faintly, like a soft reminder that she wasn't alone. But even that brought guilt. How could she raise a child when she felt broken in places she didn't know existed? How could she protect a baby when she hadn't been able to protect herself? She inhaled shakily and whispered, "I'm sorry, sweetheart." It was the first time she'd spoken to her child since waking. "I'm so sorry. I didn't see who he really was." A tear slid down her cheek. Then another. Soon she was shaking silently, her body curling inward as the dam finally gave way. She pressed her fist to her mouth to muffle the sobs, terrified someone would hear her unraveling. A soft knock interrupted her spiraling. Lucas stepped inside, wearing simple scrubs, his hair slightly mussed from a long shift. He paused when he saw her face. "Bad night?" he asked softly. Emma wiped her cheeks, embarrassed. "I'm fine," she lied. Lucas didn't move closer, didn't intrude. Instead, he leaned lightly against the doorway and said, "When people say they're fine like that, they usually mean they're drowning." The words cracked something open in her. She looked away, voice trembling. "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to live with what he did." Lucas entered the room and pulled a chair beside her bed. He didn't touch her. He didn't offer platitudes. He simply sat, steady as stone. "You survived something you weren't supposed to survive," he said gently. "Your body fought. Your baby fought. That means something." Emma let out a hollow laugh. "It feels like a mistake. Like I wasn't meant to make it out." "That's the shock talking," Lucas replied quietly, "and the grief, and the betrayal." He hesitated before adding, "The things he did to you, they'll take time to heal. But I've seen people come back from darker places. You can too." Emma's voice cracked. "I don't feel strong." Lucas shook his head. "Strength isn't loud. Sometimes it's just breathing when everything hurts." The words settled deep in her chest. "I don't want him to find me," she whispered. "I can't face him." Lucas nodded slowly. "You won't have to. Not until you choose to. And you don't have to decide anything tonight." The room grew quieter. Emma wiped her eyes again, her breathing uneven but steadier. She looked at Lucas then, really looked at the calm in his face, the kindness in his expression. He wasn't asking for anything. He wasn't trying to fix what was broken. He was simply there. And for the first time since the river swallowed her, Emma felt the faintest sense of safety. Lucas stood, giving her a small nod. "Try to sleep. You're not alone tonight." When he stepped out, the door clicking softly behind him, Emma sank deeper into the pillow and let her eyes close. The tears didn't stop, but the fear eased just enough for her to breathe. And in that fragile silence, a new thought whispered through her. Maybe survival meant more than just living. Maybe it meant becoming someone Ryan never imagined she could be. Morning sunlight crept through the blinds, cutting soft stripes across the floor. Emma blinked awake, exhausted, but more clear-headed than she'd felt since arriving. Her body was still sore, her ribs tight, but the storm inside her had settled into a cold, sharp stillness. She could feel something shifting in her, something she didn't recognize yet, but it felt dangerously close to determination. Lucas entered with a clipboard, checking her vitals. "You're stabilizing well," he said. "Your oxygen levels are good. The baby's heartbeat is still strong." Emma managed a faint nod. She wanted to thank him, but gratitude felt too small for someone who had pulled her back from death. He hesitated, then sat on the edge of a nearby chair. "There's something we need to discuss," he said gently. "The authorities from Manhattan have been calling surrounding hospitals. They're asking about any unidentified female patients. Your case might come up." Emma's breath hitched. Her fingers tightened around the blanket. She could almost see it, Ryan sitting somewhere in that glittering Manhattan world, pretending to be devastated, pretending to mourn her. The thought made her nauseous. "I don't want them to know I'm alive," she whispered. Lucas frowned slightly, not in disagreement but concern. "Emma, accidents like yours usually require a full report. Someone will have to verify your identity at some point." She shook her head, panic rising. "If they tell him, if he finds out, I can't go back to that life. I can't be his wife again. I can't pretend after everything he did." Lucas leaned forward. "You don't have to go back to him. Being alive doesn't tie you to him." Emma swallowed hard. "You don't understand. Ryan won't let this go. He'll twist it. He'll make himself look like the hero who almost lost his wife. He'll turn it into some PR redemption story, and I'll be trapped again. I can't do it. Not for me. Not for the baby." Her voice cracked on the last word. At that moment, the door swung open. A nurse peeked in. "Emma, there's someone here asking for identification confirmation." "A detective from the city." Emma froze. Lucas stood immediately. "Tell them she's not stable enough for questioning," he instructed, his voice firm in a way she hadn't heard before. The nurse nodded and left quickly. Emma stared at him, her pulse thudding. "What do I do?" she whispered. Lucas took a slow breath. "Do you have any family?" Emma hesitated. "My brother, Noah. He's in New Jersey. We haven't talked for months. Life got messy." "Do you trust him?" Lucas asked. Tears filled her eyes. "More than I've trusted anyone in years." "Then call him," Lucas said. "Let someone who loves you help you." With trembling hands, Emma dialed Noah's number from memory. It rang twice before a groggy male voice answered. "Hello? Hey," she whispered, voice cracking. "It's me." There was a long silence. Then a sharp inhale. "Emma. Emma, where the hell are you? They said you were Emma. I thought you were dead." Hearing his voice, raw with fear and love, shattered her. She sobbed, breathless. Noah didn't interrupt. He let her cry until she could speak. "I need your help," she whispered. "I need to disappear." Within hours, Noah arrived, his old Toyota still covered in dust from hurried driving. He rushed into her room and pulled her into a gentle hug, careful of her injuries. "You're safe now," he murmured. "I've got you. Whatever you need." When Lucas stepped out to give them privacy, Noah leaned closer. "You don't have to go back to him, Em. You don't owe him anything. If you want to stay gone, we can make it happen." Emma nodded slowly, something steely forming behind her eyes. She wasn't just running. She was choosing a new life, and the world would soon believe that Emma Bennett had truly died on that bridge. No one looked twice when Noah helped Emma into his car and drove her away from the hospital under the gray morning sky. To everyone else, she was just another recovering patient heading home. Only the staff who'd treated her knew the truth, that the woman who should have been headline news was slipping quietly into a new life, leaving her old name behind like a grave marker. The coastal town they traveled to sat 2 hours from Manhattan, but it felt like a different lifetime. Old wooden houses, narrow streets, the smell of salt in the air, a place where nobody asked questions because they were too busy carrying their own. Noah parked beside a small cafe, bookstore, a cozy place owned by an elderly couple who'd been friends with their parents years ago. He helped Emma into the upstairs room they had offered without hesitation. The space was small, warm, and filled with the scent of cinnamon and old pages. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt safe. For the first time in days, Emma exhaled without her chest tightening. She sat on the edge of the bed, hand resting over her belly, absorbing the fact that she was alive, sheltered, unseen. Downstairs, the cafe hummed with quiet life. Locals sipped lattes, students typed on laptops, an Amazon box waited near the counter for pickup. Emma stood at the railing, listening to the soft clinking of mugs and low conversations. It felt so different from the polished world she'd come from. No designer suits, no rehearsed smiles, no Ryan. The simplicity made her throat tighten with relief and grief all at once. Over the next few days, Emma found herself slipping naturally into the rhythm of the cafe. The owners didn't pressure her, didn't pry. They simply asked if she wanted to help part-time when she felt strong enough. She agreed, grateful for something that grounded her. She tied an apron around her waist, careful not to tighten it too much over her belly. People came and went, offering warm smiles without expectation. They didn't know her story. They didn't see tragedy when they looked at her. That anonymity was the first freedom she'd tasted in years. But nights were harder. The silence gave her room to think, and the memories crawled back like shadows. She'd wake sweating, hearing the rush of water, feeling the weight of betrayal pressing on her lungs. Sometimes she pressed a hand to her stomach just to feel the baby move, reminding herself she wasn't alone. Other times, she curled into herself, wishing she could forget the sound of Ryan's voice, choosing someone else. A week after she arrived, Lucas showed up unexpectedly. He stood in the doorway of the cafe, hands tucked into his jacket, scanning the room until he saw her. She froze behind the counter, heart pounding. He gave a small, gentle smile and approached. "Just checking on you," he said softly. "Making sure you're settling in." Emma nodded, but her voice caught. "I'm trying." Lucas didn't push. He ordered a coffee, sat at a corner table, and quietly read while she worked. His presence steady but unintrusive. Before leaving, he approached again. "If you need anything, medical checks, or just someone to listen, I'm here." Then he left, as calmly as he'd come, leaving a warmth behind that Emma didn't quite know how to hold. That night, as she folded blankets in her room, Emma stared out the window at the dark stretch of ocean. She placed a hand over her belly and whispered, "We're going to be okay." Saying it aloud felt like planting a flag in new soil, and somewhere deep inside, a new version of Emma began to breathe. Back in Manhattan, the world kept spinning as if nothing had been lost except for the man who had thrown everything away. Ryan Bennett stood in the center of his luxury apartment, the skyline glittering behind him like a taunt. Floor-to-ceiling windows, marble counters, a spotless kitchen. It all felt hollow now. Too bright. Too clean. Too big for the silence that echoed off every wall. News outlets covered the tragic accident nonstop. Headlines called him a devastated young attorney. Articles painted him as the grieving husband trying to stay strong. His firm released a statement praising his bravery during the ordeal. And every time Ryan saw his own face on TV, eyes strained, expression carefully composed, his stomach twisted with guilt, or fear, or both. Clue didn't help. At first, she hovered close, dripping sympathy, clinging to him at interviews, pressing her hand to his back like she owned him. But when the cameras stopped rolling, her tone shifted. "You need to get it together," she snapped one night, tossing her hair as she paced the living room. "You can't keep falling apart. It makes you look guilty." Ryan flinched at the word. Guilty. He poured himself another drink from the crystal decanter he'd bought months ago as a celebration gift, the same night he'd lied to Emma about working late. Now the liquor burned down his throat, but nothing numbed the memory of Emma's scream. Chloe scoffed. "I swear, you're impossible lately. You act like you're the only one who went through something. I was in that car too." "Yeah," he muttered, rubbing his temples. "And I pulled you out." Silence. The kind that felt like a knife. Chloe's eyes narrowed as she crossed her arms. "Are you blaming me for that? I didn't force you to choose." He winced. "I didn't choose." But the moment the words left his mouth, he knew it was a lie. Chloe knew too. Her eyebrow twitched, her lips tightening. "Maybe you didn't choose consciously, but you still reached for me first." Her voice softened, turning manipulative. "And we both know why. You and I, we're the same. Emma never understood your world." Ryan swallowed hard, bile rising in his throat. He wanted to defend Emma, but the truth was he'd stopped defending her long before the accident. He had let Chloe into his life piece by piece, lie by lie, until he couldn't tell where the betrayal had started. Later that night, as Chloe slept in his bed Emma's side, Ryan wandered into his office, glancing at the MacBook on his desk. His reflection in the black screen startled him. Sunken eyes, sallow skin, a man who had everything but peace. He clicked open his email. The firm had sent a list of appointments, PR coaching, grief counseling, upcoming interviews. His schedule moved on like Emma had never existed, like she hadn't been carrying his child, like the world hadn't swallowed her because he didn't reach far enough. His chest caved. He slammed the laptop shut and gripped the edge of the desk. Images of Emma underwater tormented him, the way her hand slipped, the terror in her voice. He had nightmares now, recurring ones. He saw her reaching for him, her eyes accusing, the sound of water roaring behind her. He woke drenched in sweat almost every night. The guilt wasn't quiet anymore. It roared, relentless. The next morning, he tried to go to work. He walked through the gleaming lobby of his Park Avenue office, nodding to people he barely recognized anymore. But inside the firm's boardroom, while partners discussed a high-profile case, Ryan's mind drifted. His hands shook. His voice cracked. He misquoted a statute he'd known for years. After the meeting, the managing partner pulled him aside. "Take time off," he ordered curtly. "You're not stable. You're making mistakes." Mistakes, the word echoed. Ryan left the building, his chest tight. Cars honked. People rushed past. Life moved on without him. He stood on the sidewalk, staring at the city he once controlled, and felt it shrinking around him. And deep down, he sensed something he couldn't name yet. The life he'd abandoned wasn't done with him, not even close. 2 weeks after the accident, Manhattan finally began to quiet down. The reporters found new scandals. The firm pushed forward with damage control, and the city swallowed its grief the way it swallowed everything else quickly, efficiently, without looking back. But beneath the surface, something new stirred. A whisper, a rumor, a crack in the story Ryan had carefully clung to. It started with a single blog post. A small-time investigative blogger named Dana Collins uploaded a blurry still shot taken from the bridge's traffic camera the moment before the Mercedes fell. The image showed 3 figures inside, not 2. The silhouette in the back seat was faint, but it was there. Dana circled it in red and titled her post, "Who was in the back seat?" The article didn't reach national attention, but it spread fast enough to reach the firm's PR team. They shut it down immediately, issuing takedown requests, threatening legal action. But the damage was done. That photo ignited curiosity Ryan didn't want anyone to have. The second spark came from the witnesses, the truck driver, and the older couple who had seen everything. They gave an interview to a local news station, their faces blurred. "We heard her scream," the woman said. She said, "I'm pregnant. I know what I heard." The station aired it once before lawyers pressured them to pull it. But social media had already clipped it, replaying the audio over and over. A pregnant woman, a crash, a missing wife, and a husband who wouldn't talk about the details. Meanwhile, Chloe's mask began to slip. She had always loved attention, spotlights, compliments, being the center of someone's world. But now she was being watched too closely. People whispered when she walked into the firm. Clients gave her sidelong glances. Rumors churned about her involvement. And deep down, Chloe knew she held a secret too big to ignore. The voice memo, recorded unintentionally the night of the crash, right after she and Ryan escaped the car. His voice shaky, panicked, had spilled everything into her voicemail when he thought he was just ranting. "I couldn't go back. I couldn't get her. I grabbed you. Emma was still inside. Oh God, what did I do?" It was saved, archived, hidden in a folder named Insurance. Chloe replayed it often, not out of guilt, but power. It reminded her she owned him, that she could destroy him if she wanted. But now things were changing. One evening, as Chloe approached the penthouse, she overheard 2 junior associates whispering in the hallway. "Did you hear? They're saying Emma might have survived for a few minutes. No body found. It's weird. And Ryan's losing it. Something's off." Chloe froze. For the first time, real fear crept up her spine. If investigations reopened, if the truth came out, she wouldn't just lose her leverage. She might lose her freedom. So she pivoted, just like she always did. That night, Chloe curled up beside Ryan, her voice trembling with false tenderness. "I'm scared," she whispered. "People are talking. They're saying terrible things. Maybe you should make a statement. Clear everything up." Ryan stared at the ceiling, hollow. "There's nothing to clear up. Ryan." Chloe drew closer, lowering her voice. "What if they find something? What if someone figures out Emma got out? Or that she didn't finish? She didn't need to." Ryan went pale, because for the first time since the accident, someone said the quiet part out loud. Emma might not be dead. He stood abruptly, pacing the room. His mind raced, blood pounding at his temples. "There's no proof," he muttered to himself. "There can't be proof." But he didn't believe it. Not anymore. Because guilt had a way of making even the smallest rumor feel like a certainty. And in the darkest corner of his mind, One haunting possibility took root. What if Emma wasn't gone? What if she was out there? And what if she remembered everything? The winter storm arrived without warning, thick sheets of rain slamming against the windows of the coastal town like fists. Emma stood behind the cafe counter finishing the last shift of the evening when a deep ache pulsed low in her abdomen. At first, she brushed it off as exhaustion. She'd been on her feet all day, moving slower now that she was nearing her due date. But then the pain tightened again, sharper, deeper, rolling through her like a wave with teeth. She gripped the counter, breathing hard. The cafe owner rushed over. "Emma? Honey, you okay?" Another contraction hit, doubling her over. "It's time," she whispered. Noah arrived in minutes, face pale, keys shaking in his hand as he helped her into the back seat of his old Toyota. "Hang on, Em. We're going. We're moving." He repeated the words like a mantra, more for himself than for her. Rain hammered the windshield. The wipers fought desperately, barely keeping the road visible. Every few minutes a contraction ripped through her, each one stronger than the last. Emma clutched the seatbelt, her breaths coming in broken gasps. She tried to focus on the baby's heartbeat from earlier that morning's appointment, the steady rhythm Lucas had smiled about. "She's strong," he'd said. Just like her mom. The storm worsened. Roads flooded. Visibility vanished. By the time they reached the small hospital, she could barely speak. Nurses rushed out with a wheelchair, pulling her through the sliding doors into a bright, chaotic maternity ward. Lucas appeared seconds later, still in scrubs, hair messy from a long shift. His eyes widened when he saw her. "Emma." His voice softened instantly. "You're early." A contraction tore through her. "I don't care," she gasped. "Just don't let anything happen to her." Lucas placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Nothing will. I'm right here." They wheeled her into a delivery room lit by harsh fluorescent lights. The storm howled outside, rattling the windows. Rain pooled on the windowsill. Thunder cracked so loudly it vibrated the floor. Emma lay on the bed, hair plastered to her forehead, her breathing ragged. Nurses hooked her up to monitors, checked dilation, called for extra staff. The fetal heart monitor beeped steadily, thank God, but every contraction made Emma feel like she was being ripped open from the inside. She squeezed Noah's hand so hard his knuckles turned white. "I can't," she cried. "Yes, you can," he said, voice cracking. "You survived worse than this." Lucas stood beside the bed, calm and focused, giving instructions to the nurses. "Deep breaths, Emma. Slow. You're doing incredible. Your baby's doing great." His voice became her anchor. Minutes blurred into hours. Sweat soaked her hospital gown. She screamed, sobbed, cursed, prayed. Each push felt like the last one she had left in her. And then, a sharp cry pierced the room, a cry so clear, so bright. It cut through the storm and the pain and the months of fear. Emma collapsed back onto the bed, tears streaming down her face as a tiny, slippery, perfect baby girl was placed on her chest. Warm, soft, real. Her daughter, her Grace. Emma touched the baby's cheek with trembling fingers, overwhelmed by the miracle breathing against her skin. Grace blinked, wrinkled her tiny nose, and let out another soft cry, as if announcing herself to a world that had tried to rob her of a beginning. Noah sobbed beside them, covering his mouth to hide it. Lucas stepped back, giving Emma space, his eyes shining with relief. "She's beautiful," he said quietly. Emma looked down at Grace, a life formed in love but born from betrayal, and whispered, "It's just us now, sweetheart, and I swear I'll keep you safe." Outside, the storm began to fade, and in that small hospital room, Emma realized she had survived not to return to her old life, but to build a new one, a better one. The days after Grace's birth felt like stepping into a different universe, one where the loudest sounds were soft coos and sleepy sighs, not arguments or slammed doors. Emma moved slowly at first, healing from the delivery, adjusting to the rhythm of motherhood. But every morning, sunlight poured through the small attic window of her room above the cafe, warming the quilt Noah's wife had mailed over, and she felt herself rising with new purpose. Grace became her heartbeat outside her body, tiny fingers curling around Emma's thumb. big curious eyes blinking up at her as if recognizing something familiar. For hours Emma would hold her, breathing in the powdery newborn scent, feeling an ache so profound it surprised her. Not the ache of loss, though, that lingered in quiet corners, but the ache of discovering a love that didn't break her, a love she didn't have to beg for. After a couple weeks, Emma returned to helping downstairs at the cafe, Grace nestled in a soft sling against her chest. Customers adored the baby, offering warm smiles and gentle compliments. "She's got your eyes," one woman said. Emma smiled politely, though she knew Grace had inherited Ryan's eyes, just gentler, unburdened. The cafe had become her sanctuary. While she steamed milk or wiped down tables, she listened to people's stories, small and simple kids applying for college, retirees planning road trips, fishermen discussing the tides. Ordinary lives, honest lives, lives without secrets. For the first time in years, she felt she belonged somewhere. Her old world Manhattan penthouses, corporate charity galas, cold marble floors felt distant, like a dream fading at dawn. Some mornings Lucas stopped by before his shift, hair slightly messy, scrubs half-zipped, hands wrapped around a to-go cup. He'd sit at the corner table, watching Grace sleep while Emma prepared his usual order. Their conversations were gentle, never forced. He never asked about Ryan unless she brought it up. He never pushed for details she wasn't ready to give. He was simply present. One afternoon, while Emma restocked shelves with new arrivals, she paused at a display of self-help books. Titles like Women Who Run with the Wolves and The Body Keeps the Score stared back at her. She picked up The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F times K, running her thumb along the edge. She'd seen someone reading it once at the firm, back when she still believed being quiet, obedient, and accommodating made her a good wife. Now she understood the truth. Silence had almost killed her. She bought the book and began highlighting sentences late at night while Grace slept beside her, soft breaths puffing against the blanket. Emma read about boundaries, healing, reclaiming identity. Each chapter felt like peeling away another layer of the woman she'd been forced to become. Noah visited often, bringing groceries, checking on her, fixing the cabinet door that squeaked every time she opened it. He never pushed, never demanded she move on. He just loved her in the steady, loyal way family should. Still, there were moments quiet, unexpected moments when grief struck. A song on the cafe radio, a couple holding hands, a flash of Manhattan skyline on someone's laptop wallpaper. Then the old ache returned, whispering reminders of betrayal. Some nights, after Grace finally fell asleep, Emma allowed herself to cry. But even then, the tears felt different, cleansing, not crushing. She was rebuilding. Slowly, deliberately. And through it all, the town embraced her, not as a charity case, not as a victim, but as Emma, kind, hard-working, resilient Emma. One evening, after closing, she stepped onto the small balcony overlooking the quiet street. Grace slept in her arms, warm and peaceful. Emma gazed at the moonlit sky and whispered, "We're okay. We're really okay." But as she exhaled, a chill brushed her spine, a strange, instinctive warning. Because somewhere far away, in the city she left behind, people were beginning to ask the wrong questions. And the truth Emma buried wasn't going to stay buried forever. Ryan Bennett had always believed the world bent for men like him, men who wore tailored suits, signed deals on glass tables, and shook hands with partners who sipped $15 espressos without blinking. But 2 months after the accident, the illusion began to crack. And once the first fracture appeared, everything collapsed with it. It started at the firm. Ryan walked into the Park Avenue lobby one morning, adjusting his tie, trying to look composed despite the nightmares that clawed him awake each night. But the receptionist, a woman who used to greet him with bright admiration, barely lifted her eyes. When he stepped into the elevator, 2 junior associates stopped talking mid-sentence. They didn't even try to hide it anymore. He felt their stares on the back of his neck. Upstairs, during a strategy meeting for a high-profile securities case, Ryan lost focus. Words from the senior partner blurred. Documents swam on the table. He misquoted a regulation, something he had once known by memory, and the partner snapped, "Ryan, are you even present today?" Snickers followed. Ryan clenched his hands, choking back humiliation. Later that afternoon, the managing partner summoned him into a glass-walled office overlooking the city. "We're concerned about your performance," he said bluntly. "And there are rumors circulating, questions about the night of your wife's accident." Ryan froze. "Rumors?" The partner exhaled sharply. A witness interview resurfaced. A blog post speculating Emma wasn't alone. And now clients calling, asking whether our star attorney is involved in something ugly. Ryan's throat tightened. She didn't survive," he insisted. "Everyone knows that." The partner's expression didn't budge. "Take an extended leave. Effective immediately." Ryan felt the floor tilt beneath him. Leave? Him? He had built his entire identity in these walls. "You can't. It's already decided." He left the office with his career dangling by a thread. Then came Chloe. That evening she appeared at his penthouse wearing a tight dress and a tense smile. "We need to talk," she said, stepping inside before he invited her. She moved like someone who'd made up her mind long before arriving. "I've been offered a huge opportunity," she continued breathlessly. "A position with another PR firm, better pay, better connections." Ryan stared, numb. "You're leaving?" She shrugged. "You're not exactly stable right now, Ryan. And I can't tie myself to this mess." The words hit like a punch. "This mess?" he whispered. Chloe crossed her arms, annoyed. "Look, I didn't sign up to be dragged into some scandal. People think we were together before the accident. They're not wrong, but they weren't supposed to find out. And now your career is tanking. Reporters are sniffing around again, and frankly, you're not the man I thought you were." He laughed, a broken, humorless sound. "No, I'm the man who saved your life." Chloe's expression flickered, but not with gratitude. With guilt and fear. Then she said something he'd never forget. "You saved me because you wanted to. You wanted me more than her." Ryan's breath caught. Because she was right. And hearing it spoken aloud cracked something deep inside him. Within a week, Chloe was gone, her closet empty, her perfume erased, her key left on the counter. Ryan's world shrank. He stopped eating, stopped shaving, stopped answering calls from the firm. Nights became a spiral of whiskey and guilt. Days blurred into gray fog. He tried avoiding the bridge, but fate dragged him there anyway. One night he parked in the rain, staring at the water below. He imagined Emma's hand reaching through that darkness. He imagined her voice echoing across the river. "I'm pregnant." The memory shredded him, because it wasn't just guilt anymore. It was dread, a crawling, suffocating dread that maybe, just maybe, Emma wasn't dead. That maybe the world was hiding something from him. And worse, maybe she remembered every second he left her behind. And the fear that she might return was the only thing he feared more than the truth itself. The medical conference at the Park Hyatt Manhattan was the kind of event Lucas normally avoided. Too many polished shoes, too many empty smiles, too many doctors pretending they weren't exhausted. But his department required someone to attend, and he was the unlucky volunteer. He signed in, grabbed a name tag, and slipped quietly into the sea of navy suits and clinking glasses. He had no idea he was about to run straight into the man who had nearly destroyed Emma's life. The ballroom was bright, cold, and loud. Sponsors' banners lined the walls, medical tech, pharmaceutical firms, glossy logos. Servers passed through with trays of champagne. Lucas kept to the edges, sipping water, counting the minutes until he could leave. Then he heard a voice he recognized from nightmares Emma didn't know he had. A voice he'd heard years ago in a courtroom when Ryan Bennett tried to humiliate him during a malpractice trial. A voice that once sneered across polished oak. "Dr. Hayes, are you sure your testimony is medically sound?" Lucas turned, and there he was. Ryan stood near a bar set up beneath a chandelier, shoulders slumped, suit wrinkled, tie loosened like he'd stopped caring. His eyes were hollow, dark moons carved beneath them. He nursed a whiskey like it was the only thing holding him together. For a moment, Lucas froze. Then something colder settled inside him, steady and sharp. Fate had handed him the one man Emma feared. The one man who believed she was dead. The one man who didn't deserve the peace he was pretending to drink. Lucas approached slowly. Ryan didn't notice him until their shoulders were nearly touching. When he finally looked up, confusion flickered. He squinted, trying to place the face. "I know you," Ryan muttered. You testified in that case, didn't you?" Lucas nodded once. "I did." Ryan huffed a humorless laugh. "Of course. Why wouldn't you show up tonight? Everybody else who hates me seems to." He swirled the ice in his glass. "You probably saw the stories. The accident. My wife." Lucas kept his voice even. "I heard." Ryan swallowed hard, eyes distant. "I can't sleep," he confessed suddenly, voice cracking. "I hear her. Every night. I see her reaching for me." He dragged a hand down his face. "I'm losing my mind." Lucas said nothing. His jaw tightened. Ryan kept talking, as if begging anyone to absolve him. "I didn't mean to leave her," he whispered. "I swear I didn't. I panicked. I saved Chloe because she was closer, because she grabbed me, because—" His voice broke. "Because I thought I'd come back for Emma. But the car tilted. It tilted, and He didn't finish. The words disintegrated on his tongue. Lucas's pulse hammered in his ears. This was the moment Emma had described through trembling breaths, the choice Ryan made, the terror, the betrayal. And now the man who caused it was unraveling in front of him. Not out of remorse, but self-pity. Lucas leaned slightly closer. "Do you regret it?" he asked, voice low. Ryan looked up sharply. "Every second," he whispered. "Every damn second. But regret doesn't change anything. She's gone. She's dead. And I have to live with that." Lucas stared at him, studying the cracks in his expression. The guilt, the fear, the cowardice. For a heartbeat, he considered telling Ryan the truth, that Emma lived, that she'd survived because someone else had chosen her when he didn't. But he said nothing. He simply stepped back and lifted his glass. "Some truths," Lucas murmured, "have a way of coming back." Ryan's face drained. "What's that supposed to mean?" Lucas didn't answer. He walked away, leaving Ryan gripping the bar with white knuckles, breathing hard, as if the world had just shifted beneath his feet. And for the first time, Ryan Bennett felt a terror colder than the river, because someone out there knew more than he did. The wind carried the scent of the ocean into the cafe that evening, a soft reminder of the quiet life Emma had fought to build. Grace slept peacefully in her bassinet near the counter as Emma finished wiping tables, the shop now empty except for the warm glow of string lights reflecting off the windows. She hummed faintly, something she hadn't done in years. It felt good to feel normal, even fragilely so. Then the door opened. Emma looked up, startled. Lucas stood there, coat damp from the coastal chill, shoulders tense. Not the usual calm Lucas she'd grown accustomed to, but someone holding a storm behind his eyes. Her heart dropped. "Lucas," she whispered. "Is something wrong? Is Grace okay?" He shook his head quickly. "Grace is perfect." He swallowed. "It's something else." Emma felt the room shrink around her. "What happened?" Lucas gently closed the door behind him, making sure no one lingered outside. He approached, stopping just inches from her. His voice dropped to a low, steady tone, a tone she had only heard once before, the night he told her she'd survived the river. "I saw him," he said. The floor seemed to tilt beneath her feet. "Who?" Lucas held her gaze. "Ryan." The name punched the air from her lungs. Her grip on the cloth tightened until her knuckles turned white. For a moment, she couldn't breathe, couldn't move. "Where?" she finally whispered. "At a medical conference," Lucas said softly. "He didn't recognize me at first, but we talked." The words felt heavy, measured. "He's unraveling, Emma. More than you know." Emma steadied herself against a table. Her pulse raced, loud and frantic. "What did he say?" Lucas hesitated just long enough for Emma to understand the truth would hurt. "He admitted it," Lucas said. Out loud. "He admitted choosing Chloe first. Admitted he meant to go back for you, but didn't. Admitted he panicked." Lucas exhaled sharply. "He said he regrets every second of it." Emma's vision blurred. Sweat beaded along her brow. She wasn't sure what stung more, the confirmation or the memory itself. "He thinks you're dead," Lucas added quietly. completely dead. There was no hesitation in his voice. Emma sank into a chair, the wooden edge pressing into her ribs, as if trying to keep her from falling apart. She closed her eyes, hearing Ryan's voice in her head. His anger, his lies, his choices. He regrets it, she murmured bitterly. Now he decides to regret it. Lucas softened, kneeling down beside her. Emma, what he regrets isn't losing you. It's losing control. Losing his image. Losing the version of himself he liked. Emma felt the truth settle cold in her chest. She tried to wipe her cheeks before the tears fell, but one escaped. Lucas saw it. He didn't reach for her, he never touched her without permission. Instead, he set his hand on the table beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth but not trapped by it. There's something else, he said quietly. Emma looked up, breath trembling. He's scared, Lucas continued. Not because he thinks he did wrong, but because he thinks the truth might come back to him. Emma's heart lurched. Does he know? No, Lucas assured quickly. He has no idea. He just senses something is off. Emma wiped another tear. So it begins, she whispered. Lucas nodded slowly. Emma, you need to decide your next steps, because this won't stay quiet forever. Emma sat back, trembling but beneath the fear. Another feeling surfaced. Something sharp. Something controlled. Something controlled. Something that had been building from the moment she crawled out of that river. Resolve. She looked at Grace sleeping peacefully, her tiny chest rising and falling like the simplest miracle. I'm not running anymore, Emma whispered. Not from him, not from the truth. Lucas held her gaze, pride flickering in his eyes. Then we'll face whatever comes next together, he said softly. Emma rose from the chair, wiping her face, her expression no longer fragile but forged. Because the life she'd rebuilt wasn't meant to stay hidden, and Ryan Bennett had no idea that the woman he abandoned was ready to rise again. Emma didn't sleep that night. She lay on the small sofa in her attic room, Grace curled against her chest, listening to the quiet hum of the ocean outside. Her mind raced with everything Lucas had told her. Ryan's confession, his unraveling, his fear. For months she had lived in the safety of anonymity, letting the world believe she was gone. But now, the thought of him moving through Manhattan telling lies, repainting himself as a victim lit a fire in her she hadn't felt in years. She pressed her lips to Grace's forehead. He doesn't get to rewrite our story, Emma whispered. Not anymore. In the morning, she called Noah. He arrived within an hour, face tight with worry but carrying a fierce protectiveness Emma had come to rely on. He scooped up Grace, bouncing her lightly as she reached for his beard. Okay, he said, settling her into her crib. Tell me everything. From the beginning. Emma did. Every word spilled out Lucas seeing Ryan, the confession, the rising suspicions in Manhattan. Noah's expression hardened with every sentence. When she finished, he paced the room with heavy steps. He's starting to panic, Noah muttered. Good. Let him. But we need to get ahead of this before he hears a whisper of you being alive. Emma nodded. I'm ready. Noah stopped pacing. Ready for what, Em? She inhaled deeply. To go back. To tell the truth. To take my life back before he distorts it. Noah didn't argue. He didn't try to shield her. He simply said, Then we do it smart. They sat at the small table, Grace babbling beside them in her bouncer seat. Lucas arrived soon after, wearing jeans and a jacket still smelling faintly of hospital disinfectant. When he entered, Emma felt her panic ease just slightly. Something about Lucas solid, steady, unshaken, made even the most terrifying decisions feel possible. They spent hours planning. No surprise confrontations, Noah said firmly. You're not walking into his penthouse alone. We go through legal channels. Lucas leaned forward. You'll need representation. Someone outside his firm. Someone with a spine. And someone who won't leak a thing, Noah added. Emma exhaled slowly. I know someone. Both men looked at her. Emma hesitated, then continued. Stephanie Cho. We went to nursing school together before she switched careers. She's an attorney now. Small firm, Big integrity. Noah nodded approvingly. Perfect. Someone Ryan can't manipulate. Lucas placed his hand on the table, close to hers. Emma, once you step back into Manhattan, this becomes public. People will talk. Reporters might show up. He'll fight back. Hard. Emma swallowed. Then I'll fight harder. Lucas's gaze softened. You don't have to do any of it alone. Her breath wobbled, but she steadied herself. I know. They set the date 2 weeks. Enough time to gather medical documents, proof of survival, and a timeline that would contradict every lie Ryan had fed the public. Enough time to prepare for the shockwaves. Enough time to make sure she was walking into Manhattan with a shield instead of scars. That night, after Noah left and Grace fell asleep, Emma stood on the balcony, overlooking the quiet coastal street. Lucas joined her, hands in his pockets. You're brave, he murmured. She shook her head slightly. No, I'm tired of hiding. Lucas turned to her. That's bravery, too. The air between them shifted, not romantic yet, not defined, but charged with something honest. Something built slowly, without force or desperation. Emma looked back at the moonlit waves. Do you think he'll be shocked? Lucas gave a faint, dark smile. Emma, Ryan Bennett thinks he buried his worst mistake. He has no idea his reckoning is walking right back into the city. Emma nodded, jaw tightening. Because she wasn't returning as the woman he left on that bridge, she was returning as the woman who survived it. The Manhattan skyline hit Emma like a physical force the moment Noah's Toyota crossed the bridge. The steel towers she once admired now looked foreign, cold, harsh, and haunting. She tightened her grip on the car seat beside her where Grace slept peacefully, unaware that the city she was entering held the man who had chosen to let her die. Noah glanced at the rearview mirror. You okay? Emma nodded, though her throat felt tight. I'm ready. Maybe it was a lie. Maybe no one could ever be truly ready to face the man who abandoned them in a sinking car. But Emma had something she didn't have before. Strength, truth, and grace. Lucas followed behind in his own car, unwilling to let Emma walk into this alone. They headed not to Ryan's penthouse, but to a law office in Midtown Stephanie Cho's firm, where the confrontation would be formal, controlled, and legally recorded. No surprise, no manipulation, no running. Stephanie greeted Emma with a long, fierce hug. You look strong, she said softly. Let's keep him from breaking that. Emma managed a small smile. Thank you for doing this. Oh, honey, Stephanie scoffed, making a cheating husband sweat. It's my cardio. They entered a conference room with glass walls, a long, polished table, and the breathtaking Manhattan skyline stretching behind it. Grace slept in her carrier at Emma's feet, as if sensing this moment wasn't hers but entirely about her. At exactly 10, Ryan Bennett walked in with his attorney, and froze. The world seemed to stop. His face turned white, so white Emma thought he might pass out. His briefcase slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a dull thud. For a brief, fleeting moment, Emma saw raw fear in his eyes. Emma? His voice cracked like thin glass. Emma didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't give him the tears he once fed on. Yes, she said plainly. I'm alive. Ryan staggered forward, reaching out before catching himself. How? How is this possible? They said you, Emma. I thought you were dead. You thought the river did your work for you? She replied, tone sharp but steady. His mouth fell open. No, I never, Emma. I was devastated. I broke down. Stop. Her voice cut through him like a blade. We're not here to hear your rehearsed grief. Ryan flinched. His attorney tried to recover the moment. Mrs. Bennett, if we could clarify the purpose of... Emma held up a hand. I am not Mrs. Bennett anymore. Silence thickened. She reached into a folder Stephanie had prepared and laid out documents, her medical records from the night of the accident, the timeline proving her rescue, and the witness statements, linking Ryan to the truth he had drowned in lies. Ryan's voice trembled. Emma, please. I didn't know you were alive. If you had known, she interrupted, you would have tried to control the narrative. Make yourself a hero, play the sweet widower. but you never would have told the truth." His jaw tightened, shame and panic wrestling behind his eyes. Then Emma placed the final document on the table, Grace's birth certificate with father listed as UNK known. Ryan's breath collapsed into a single broken sound. Is that my daughter?" Emma didn't blink. "She's my daughter. What you chose that night made sure of it." His knees buckled. He gripped the back of a chair to keep from collapsing. "I want to see her," he whispered, desperate. "Please. I need—" Emma's stare hardened. "You don't get to need anything anymore." Stephanie leaned forward, voice crisp. "Mr. Bennett, today isn't about reunions. It's about formal notice. Emma is filing for full custody, financial damages, and an investigation into your conduct the night of the accident." Ryan's attorney pallid. Ryan turned to Emma again, tears forming. "Please. I never stopped loving." "Don't," Emma said sharply. "The last time I begged you for help, you ran. You don't get to say my name like you own it now." He broke. Right there, in the glass conference room high above the city he once ruled, Ryan Bennett fell apart, shoulders shaking, tears dripping onto his expensive suit, breath uneven and raw. But Emma didn't feel pity. She felt closure, because this was the moment she stopped being the woman he left behind and became the woman he would never escape. Ryan didn't leave the conference room right away. He just stood there, trembling, gripping the back of the leather chair as if it were the only thing keeping him upright. Emma remained perfectly still, hands folded, her breathing steady. Grace slept quietly in her carrier, unaware that her very existence had just cracked a man open. Stephanie leaned back in her chair, tapping her pen with a surgeon's precision. "Mr. Bennett, today is merely the preliminary meeting before we file. There will be depositions, interviews, and depending on the district attorney, potential charges." Ryan's lawyer blanched. "Charges? On what grounds?" Emma didn't speak. She simply slid the final envelope across the table. Lucas had given it to her that morning. He said it was better to use it when Ryan didn't expect it, when he was already off balance. Now, watching Ryan stare at the envelope, Emma understood why. "What's this?" Ryan asked, voice cracking. "Open it," Emma said. He hesitated, then tore it open with shaking fingers. When the voice memo began playing, the room became dead silent. Ryan's own voice filled the air, panicked, breathless, frantic. "I couldn't go back. I couldn't reach her. I grabbed Chloe. Emma was still inside. I don't know what I did, God. I don't know what I did." The audio ended with Ryan sobbing a raw, terrified sound. His attorney's face drained of color. Stephanie raised an eyebrow. "Interesting." Ryan's chest heaved. "That's not... I didn't mean... I wasn't thinking straight." Emma's voice cut through the air like a blade. "You confessed," she said. "Not to the police. Not to your firm. Not to the public. But to your lover." Ryan looked physically ill. "Chloe recorded me?" He staggered backward, nearly tripping over his own briefcase. The weight of betrayal twisted across his face. She said she deleted it. She promised she..." Emma tilted her head. "Chloe never promised you anything except what benefited her." Ryan's breath trembled. His facade was collapsing piece by piece. Stephanie tapped the folder. "This recording alone proves negligence and intentional abandonment during a life-threatening incident. Combined with witness statements and your inconsistent reports, the court will not be kind." Ryan shook his head violently. No, this isn't fair, Emma. Please, this isn't who I am." Emma's voice stayed level. "It's exactly who you were when it mattered." He swallowed, struggling for air. "You don't understand. I panicked. I was scared." Emma leaned forward slightly. "I was scared too, Ryan. I was underwater, pregnant, dying, and I still reached for you. Do you know the difference between us? Fear didn't stop me from trying." He stared at her, face twisted with something between agony and recognition. She continued, voice colder now. "And even if every excuse you're about to make were true, you didn't tell the truth afterward. You lied, again and again. You built a narrative, polished it, performed it, and let the world mourn a woman you abandoned." Ryan sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. For the first time, he looked small. "I thought the car would sink," he whispered. "I thought you were gone. I told myself there was nothing I could do." He lifted his red, wet eyes. "I hated myself." Emma didn't flinch. Not enough. His breath hitched. "Emma," he pleaded quietly. "I need to see her. Grace. Please. Just once." She stood. No trembling, no fear, just certainty. "No," she said. Ryan blinked. "No, you can't do that. I'm her father." "You forfeited that the moment you chose who to save," Emma replied. "You'll see her only when the court permits it, and if they do, it will be supervised." He let out a broken, wounded sob. Emma picked up Grace's carrier, settling it gently in her arms. "This isn't revenge," she said softly, but firmly. "This is accountability." Ryan reached out weak, desperate, but Stephanie stepped between them. "Meeting's over," she announced, gathering her files. "Expect filings by morning." Emma walked out without looking back. Ryan collapsed into the chair behind her, shattered. And for the first time, he realized the truth. The woman he left behind hadn't come back to destroy him. She came back to bury the lies he built his life on. The courthouse smelled faintly of old paper and polished floors, sterile, cold, unforgiving. Emma walked through the metal detector with Grace in her arms and Noah and Lucas at her side. Cameras flashed from the steps outside, reporters shouting her name, trying to capture the woman who had risen from the dead. But inside these walls, none of that mattered. Today wasn't about headlines. It was about truth. Stephanie met them in the hallway, adjusting her suit jacket with calm confidence. "He's already here," she said. "With a full team." She smirked. "He looks like he hasn't slept in weeks." Emma exhaled, steadying Grace against her chest. "Good." They entered the courtroom. Ryan sat at the defendant's table, shoulders slumped, hair unkempt, the sharp, polished attorney now reduced to a hollow version of himself. When he saw Emma, his breath visibly caught. His eyes flicked to Grace, tiny, sleeping, peaceful, and his face crumpled with longing and regret. Emma felt nothing for him. No pity, no softness, only resolve. The judge entered. Everyone rose. The custody and negligence hearing began. Ryan's attorney attempted to paint him as a traumatized man overwhelmed by grief, insisting the voice memo was taken out of context, that Ryan had panicked in shock. But Stephanie stood, flipping through her documents with a composure that silenced the room. "Your Honor," she began, "what we have here is not panic. It is a pattern of deception." Her voice echoed off the high walls. "Mr. Bennett lied to law enforcement. He lied to the public. He lied to his own firm. He knowingly allowed the world to believe his pregnant wife died while he played the grieving hero." Ryan flinched. Stephanie continued. "We have medical records showing Emma Bennett was admitted, unidentified, to an out-of-city ER less than an hour after the accident. We have witness statements confirming a pregnant woman's voice was heard screaming from the car. And most importantly," she pressed a button on a small speaker, "we have Mr. Bennett's own confession." The courtroom went dead silent as Ryan's voice played again. "I grabbed Chloe. Emma was still inside. I don't know what I did." His attorney tried to object, but the judge raised a hand. "The recording is admissible." Ryan buried his face in his hands. When the judge invited Emma to speak, her heart pounded, but she stood. She didn't make a speech. She didn't cry. She simply told the truth. "I begged him," she said softly. "And he reached for someone else. I was underwater, scared, pregnant, dying, and I still believed he would come back for me." Her eyes locked on Ryan. "But he didn't, and afterward, he didn't tell the truth. He let the world mourn me so he wouldn't have to face what he did." Ryan's shoulders shook. Emma continued, voice steady. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to protect my daughter." Lucas watched from the front row, jaw tight with pride and protective fury. Noah squeezed her shoulder. When Ryan was finally allowed to speak, he rose on shaky legs. "Your Honor, please," he whispered, voice raw. "I didn't mean to abandon her. I loved Emma. I still do. And Grace, please. She's my daughter." Emma's breath didn't waver. Ryan reached a trembling hand toward the judge. I need a chance to be her father. I need— Mr. Bennett, the judge interrupted, voice stern. This court is not concerned with what you need. It is concerned with what this child needs, and what her mother needs. The judge reviewed the evidence slowly, deliberately. Then, for the safety and stability of the child, full legal and physical custody is awarded to Miss Emma Bennett. Mr. Bennett will have no visitation rights pending psychological evaluation, completion of mandatory therapy, and further review by the court. Ryan collapsed into his seat, sobbing openly. Emma closed her eyes, not in relief, but in release. It was done. As they exited the courtroom, reporters swarmed, shouting questions. But Emma didn't stop. She didn't look back. Lucas caught up to her, touching her arm. "It's over," he murmured. Emma looked up at him, her strength rising like sunlight. "No," she said softly. "It's just beginning." Because now that she had her freedom back, she could finally choose the life she wanted, and the man she wanted to build it with. Spring arrived in soft colors along the coast, warm breezes, drifting through open windows, sunlight glimmering off the water, tiny flowers blooming along the walkway to the cafe. It had been 2 months since the court hearing, 2 months since Emma walked out of Manhattan carrying her daughter and her freedom. Life had settled into a gentle rhythm again. Grace laughed more now, her bright little giggles echoing through the shop as customers leaned in to coo at her. Emma found herself smiling, genuinely smiling, in ways she hadn't in years. But healing isn't the same as forgetting. Some shadows needed one final clearing. One quiet morning, Lucas found Emma sitting on the porch behind the cafe, Grace asleep on her chest. "I got something in the mail," he said softly, holding out a sealed envelope. Emma recognized the handwriting immediately. Ryan. Her stomach tightened. Lucas set the envelope beside her and didn't push. "Whatever you decide to do with it, I'm here." Emma nodded, her breath trembling slightly. When he left, she stared at the envelope for a long moment. Then she opened it. Inside was a single handwritten letter. "Emma, I don't expect forgiveness. I won't insult you by asking for it. But I needed to say what I couldn't say in that courtroom. Every day since that night, I've relived the moment I left you. I see your hand reaching for me in my sleep. I hear your voice. I know I deserve the life I'm living, the nightmares, the isolation, the shame. I know I ruined everything. I hope someday Grace knows I loved her, even if I failed her before she was born. I hope you find peace and love and a life better than anything I gave you. I'm leaving New York for a while, maybe forever. Ryan." Emma folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. Surprisingly, she didn't cry. She didn't shake. She didn't feel anger twisting inside her chest. Instead, what she felt was closure, a final door closing behind her. That afternoon, she walked with Grace along the beach path. The breeze lifted her hair, and the ocean whispered against the shore. She stopped at a bench overlooking the horizon. This was the place she came when she needed clarity. Grace babbled happily, grabbing at the sunlight with chubby fingers. "You'll never know that version of me," Emma whispered to her daughter. "The one who stayed quiet, the one who waited, the one who trusted someone who didn't deserve it." Grace cooed, her little hand brushing Emma's chin. "And that's the miracle," Emma said softly. "Because I became someone new for you." Footsteps approached behind her. She didn't have to turn to know who it was. Lucas, the man who pulled her from the water, the man who watched her break and rebuild, the man who stood in every gap she once fell through. He sat beside her quietly. "You okay?" he asked. Emma nodded. "I think I am." For the first time in a long time, Lucas looked at her not with pity, not with uncertainty, but with a warmth that felt like home. "Good," he murmured. "Because I have something I've been wanting to ask you." Her heart fluttered, but she held his gaze. Lucas took a slow breath. "Emma, I care about you, about Grace, more than I expected, and more than I ever planned. I'm not trying to rush anything, but—" He hesitated, searching for the right words. "If you're ready, I'd like to build something real with you. Something steady, something honest." Emma's eyes softened. She looked down at Grace, who stared up at Lucas like she already trusted him. Then she turned back to him. "I'm ready," she whispered. Lucas exhaled, relief washing over his face. He leaned in, brushing a gentle kiss to her forehead, not possessive, not demanding, just a promise of something new. The three of them stayed there until the sun dipped low, the sky painted in gold and pink. Emma held Grace close and leaned into Lucas's warmth. Her past had tried to drown her. But her future, this future, was filled with light. And in that moment, Emma knew with absolute certainty. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was finally, beautifully, free. And just like that, our story comes to a close. But you, yes, you, the wonderful soul still here with me, didn't stay until this moment by accident. Something in Emma's journey touched a hidden place in your heart. Maybe her pain, maybe her strength, maybe the moment she finally chose herself. Whatever it is, let's sit with it together for a moment. Her story reminds us of a truth Marcus Aurelius once wrote. The obstacle is the way. What tried to break her became the doorway to a new life. And perhaps that's the same for you. Your heartbreak, your losses, the nights you thought would drown you, maybe they're shaping you into someone stronger, clearer, freer. Healing isn't loud. Sometimes it's just choosing not to return to what once hurt you. Sometimes it's building a new life, brick by brick, breath by breath. If Emma's journey made you feel less alone or reminded you of your own worth, then please like this video, share it with someone who needs strength tonight, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story that might speak to you. You matter. Your story isn't over, and I'm right here walking with you through every chapter.